The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by PGC. PGC are the longest serving employer of record in North America and can compliantly engage contractors across both the US and Canada on behalf of staffing and recruitment businesses. Our turnkey solution offers a unique access point to the largest staffing market in the world. To find out more, visit us at pgcgroup.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliot Manning, the CEO of Cayman Recruitment Group. We're coming up to about 89, 87, 88 episodes now on the Search Podcast, still sponsored by the guys over at PGC, part of Workwell Group, who are incredible, by the way, for EOR solutions in North America. I've got a very special guest on the podcast with me this week. I've been following this guy for a very, very long time. Came up on my LinkedIn during COVID, and what he was doing was just great for the industry and is in what I would call an influencer on LinkedIn for the UK, US, even globally. But Joe, I'll let you take up an introduction of yourself.
Yeah, Elliot, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. For anyone who doesn't know me or is not familiar with my voice or this face, my name is Joel Lalgee. I have been in recruiting for about a decade, mainly on the agency side in the US. But since getting into recruitment, I've obviously been doing hands-on recruitment, sales. I've done some training, and over the last probably 3 to 5 years, I got really into building brand online. So it's building brands, building a personal brand on LinkedIn, and then starting to move on to other platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Probably most recently, biggest news for me is that over the last month or so, as we all kind of know, the market's been pretty hit or miss the past couple of years, but feeling pretty optimistic about the future. So I just launched my own recruitment agency. So now I can say I'm a recruitment agency owner. I feel very proud to say that. But
that's amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, well, thank you. But yeah, I put out good amount of content, like really into this whole idea of building brand and really just connecting with people digitally. Connecting with candidates, connecting with other recruiters, and connecting with business leaders. So it's great to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
How important, and Joel, thank you for joining me on this. It's great to have you on and get some more insights of what you're doing. But I look, a lot of recruiters everything's all about social media now, branding, awareness. It's gone crazy. And to be honest with you, like Cayman and the business I have has been predominantly pushed on branding and getting the name out there so that we have more inbound work coming to us. How important is it for recruiters to have the social media presence, LinkedIn presence that you have? I mean, which allows you to have the following and the recognition that you get?
Yeah, look, I think there's different levels to what even brand means, right? And when I think about brand, it's always going to be like, what do people think about when they think of you personally, or they think of your business? And so I think, digital is huge. I think for creating awareness, which awareness in general is powerful, because if people are aware of who you are, you're gonna get higher responses on DMs. Like I'm obviously in BD mode right now, so I'm reaching out to people. My response rate on just DMs to people in my network is 40 to 50%. So pretty much every other person I reach out to will take a meeting with me. Now, does every single one of those meetings result in sales? Like, obviously not, because maybe they don't have needs. But I know that you have that first conversation, and then business is going to come through with follow-up, right? And so I think nowadays it's a must-have if you're genuinely looking to scale whatever you're doing. I also think that I think what also matters just as much, which should just never get left behind, is like you have to be able to execute. And I kind of like learned this lesson the hard way. And I'll be open enough to admit it, where I started building a brand out of really a place of pure obscurity. So I wasn't a business owner. I'd been in recruitment for about 5 years, but I just started creating content. And I've been doing it so consistently now that there's credibility there because of that. And obviously, people see a large follower count. There's just a social proof there. But you just you can't get away from actually executing. So, what I would say is you shouldn't really build a brand online until you're getting referrals from your current clients, right? If your current clients aren't referring you, if you're not actually executing in the real world, a personal brand's not going to do anything, or a digital personal brand's not going to do anything. But if you are scaling, if you're killing it on your desk or your business is growing, going digital and getting focused on online is just going to exponentially grow whatever you're doing,
Yeah,
because you start to reach people who then know people that you know, right? And it is really a network effect.
yeah,
The challenge is most people who are doing really well feel like they don't need to then go digitally because they're like, whatever, I'm doing great. And so then what can kind of happen is people who aren't doing great, then they start building the brand and then it doesn't help them. So
yeah,
first things first is like get your recruiting business going, get the business in the door, and then you have a lot more to talk about. And you just but I think in the future, if you're not thinking that way at this point, I think you're gonna miss out. And unless you're thinking about retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, or maybe
yeah.
less than that, I do think you're making a mistake if you're not thinking about, your digital brand, your personal brand, social media, all those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, as this podcast is dedicated to kind of the US and and helping those that want to do more over there or currently doing stuff over there and trying to improve, like how different is the culture on your social media for the US against the UK? Is it a different vibe? Is it a different kind of way to, maybe use humor or information to the US market and audience as opposed to anywhere else?
It's a great question. I think like over in the UK, and like I worked with a lot of recruitment agencies in the UK. I'm also from the UK,
Yeah,
and I'm also connected to a lot of people in the UK. I feel like in the UK, people are you're a lot more likely to get trolls. In fact, I got a troll this morning on one of my posts
yeah,
who was from Scotland, and he said, "This is the dumbest post I've ever seen." I was like,
yeah.
"Thanks, man. That really means a lot."
We've seen them a lot.
Um, so I think I think the difference would be, I think in the US there's a lot more emphasis on um like almost like polished, like having more of like a polished brand. I've noticed. So I don't know whether humor. I think humor in general on social media, humor is going to get a lot of reactions. I don't know whether that always wins business though. I think
Yeah,
what is going to win business is like is a genuine sense of like being authentic and then being professional. And again, like um people want to work with people who are going to bring them value and people who are winners as well. So
yeah,
I think like in the US, like you want to talk a lot more about like your wins, how you're winning in the business. People love stories. They like the story of that person that started that business from nothing and now they've done something with it. So I think a lot of that content still resonates really well with people. I think humor across the board on social will, again, like I think you can do well with that.
yeah,
Um, but the danger with humor is it's easy then to become just like a meme account or like a joke account,
yeah,
which is a business within itself. But I don't know how much recruiting business you have. I think in the UK, it seems like um, I don't know if people resonate as much with that type of content. Um, I think in the UK, like people, it's like they want like they're just not as cheesy in the UK, I think,
yeah,
as in the US. I think you can get away with a lot more of like the cheesy kind of content in the US
yeah,
than the UK. Um, but yeah, again, I think across the board with content, like we are seeing content getting elevated again,
yeah,
which is why I think if you're thinking, hey, I'm just gonna do a couple written posts right now, but like video is huge. So it's like video are the things you're gonna be looking at, and there's a ton of different approaches you could
yeah.
use.
You put a lot of content out there about the industry and like circumstances that occur, when it comes
Yeah.
to like CVs and interviews and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any, I suppose, I would rephrase the question. With the US market in this instance, is it a very different way of recruiting and working, in your opinion, as it is in the UK? Are you seeing things done differently in the US that works well that maybe that they don't do from a UK recruitment market or vice versa?
I think one of the things that they do really well in the UK is I just think there's a lot more of that like sales cold calling mindset. And I think that in the US, like you don't I think recruiters in the US seem to be a little bit more timid with that. Like even agency recruiters, like there isn't that bigger emphasis. I think in general, right now, I think things like email, for example, it's just not as powerful than it was 10 years ago. So I think if you're, email sequences, for example, like anybody and everybody is using email sequences, which means the effectiveness of email sequences has gone down. Same with
Yeah.
in-mails. So I think it's just across the board, and I would imagine it's the same in the UK. Like the market really is favoring the companies right now. I think it's hard to come across, or you don't come across as many companies who are like, yeah, we're really struggling to get applicants, for example, right? Whether they're getting the right applicants or they're getting good applicants in that's a whole different thing. But I think there's sales and like outbound activity has become so easy, like from a digital point of view with like emails and messages and DMs that now I think again going back to content, like if people don't know you, they're not going to be as likely to accept your request. If you're not delivering value, they're not going to be as likely to
Yeah.
respond to what you're saying. So I my personal thought is I think you've got to be a lot more intentional. And I think even like understanding like how to go to like, meetups and events. I'm seeing a lot more of that type of activity as well. And like I know like Greg Savage, I follow him and like he's always talking about this, like going and actually like meeting clients or going to events where your clients are going to be spending time or prospects are going to be spending time and getting time in with that. I
Mm.
think that's going to become more and more relevant. And it already is that way, but I think it's just going to go more that way. And I think if you're messaging people, if you're reaching out to them cold, um, you've got to have some level of like reason for reaching out to people
Yeah.
because just everyone's inboxes are flooded. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you've seen the same thing.
Yeah, I spoke to a company earlier and they're huge like they very much into like communities and networking. So they said to me that from a business development standpoint, they don't want people who are just sitting there, phone call, phone call, phone call, or email, email, email. It's not effective enough. So they are, going to conferences, trying to get speaker slots to try and get themselves involved in these conferences where their clients are going to be in the room. They can then follow up with those clients and say, hey, we met and they've got something to reference, their meetups
Exactly.
by, and there's so much more it's so much more powerful. And I don't see it a lot in the UK. I don't see there's enough conferences. There's not enough, like renewable energy, for example, right? They have a huge conference every year in the US that every agency in the States, I feel like, goes to it that specialize in renewable energy. And they're going to go meet all their clients and they go and network and they stay in, the location for 3 or 4 days. You don't get that much in the UK. And I think that if you're not able to kind of put yourself in those positions and show your face and do that, yeah, like it's just not as effective as it could be much better, if they were doing that.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think also that's a product of just like the market that we're in as well. And like, I mean, we're
Yeah,
talking about the US market. I mean, at least I just remember in 2021 and 2022, like at least part of 2022, it's like every intake call I took, the hiring manager was to, and I was recruiting recruiters, like internal talent. And
yeah,
so they would all, you'd have that conversation. Yeah, we're looking to double our headcount, triple our headcount. I genuinely can't remember the last time I had a conversation with someone, and I talked to a lot of talent leaders, a lot of internal people, a lot of recruiters. I can't really remember the last time I talked to someone. They were like, "Yeah, we have plans to double our company and triple our company in size." And obviously, there's the industries that I think here that um, have the biggest needs, and I think the biggest opportunity for like winning business would be construction, hospitality,
yeah,
healthcare. Like those three areas, they have needs. But again, it's not because of growth. It's because nobody's going into those fields. So there's
no,
genuinely just a talent supply issue. But with
yeah,
the corporate positions, with tech, with the Fortune 100 companies that are outside those industries, there's just not that much demand for corporate. roles right now. And in fact, the emphasis is, and we see because we continue to see it, the talk with leadership is how do we get more done with less people?
Yeah.
Because of the last 2.5 years or 2 years, we've also seen a massive influx of automation and AI tools. So they're really thinking about like, this whole efficiency, like how can we get more done with less people?
Yeah.
But again, that's if every company's thinking like that, then you don't have as much demand for recruiting, but it's a market, so it's going to shift at some point. There will be a point where companies look to grow, they look to add to teams, and they're going to look to find people again.
Yeah.
And so so I think now again, if you're thinking about like how do I approach the U.S. market, I think it's building relationships for the future and just understanding like most of the stuff isn't. You might win an odd deal, randomly because someone has a need in the moment, but most of it's going to come through building those relationships, starting those relationships, and then
Yeah.
following up, meeting people, being good at listening and having conversations and providing solutions
Yeah.
versus
Transactional.
exactly. And I think one of the things I've seen in the US is there's a lot more fractional
Yeah.
recruiting solutions, which are usually smaller shops that aren't just locked into contingency or retained models.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people who are thinking, hey, maybe I can do like a flexible RPO hourly model that has maybe a success fee built into it. And I think what a lot of people are doing is they're thinking, how can we get a little bit more flexible with what we offer? And how can we add consulting in there? How can
Yeah.
we add other services that are ancillary to recruiting
Yeah.
that can help the business? And I think that buyers like that, those are the types of things they want to hear. They want
Yeah.
consultants versus just pure like, hey, just fill this role and we'll pay your fee. So I think there's a whole shift kind of taking on, right? And there's a lot of tools out there. So I think the teams that are going to win are the ones that know how to leverage the technology,
Yeah.
know how to be consultants to the business, and then aren't just so like you said, they're not. It's not just make 100 cold calls, try and land a
Yeah.
job order. I think it's try and build relationships, see where the problems are, and provide solutions. And I think the companies that grasp a hold of that, at least in the short term, will do well, and then in the long term, they'll do even better because the market's going to shift at some point.
Absolutely. I had a guest on he's on a podcast this week, a guy called Mark Satin from a company called Finital in New York. And, he and I were discussing kind of what you said. Like he went over to the US, was getting meetings upon meetings upon meetings, and it was great. But, the US companies love taking meetings. That's one part of it. They love kind of having an open door and
People
building
love
a
to kick
network.
tires.
Yeah, yeah. But one thing he struggled with that no one was coming back to him and no one was giving him business. And what he sort of found out that 2 years later is that a majority of those people are his clients now. And, he's kind of had that persistent long-term relationship building process with them that's allowed him to stand out from anybody else or the
Yeah.
business. And they're now working, consistently and exclusively with some of those businesses because, he stuck with it. He just didn't want that transactional placement with them. And it made a huge difference. So yeah, what you just said is, they're in it for the long game. I mean, I'm in rack to rack, with Cayman, but it took us 3, 4 years to really kind of see, a lot more coming through that was better than other agencies were getting and allowing us to be more successful. But it was the long game, and it can be expensive long game for recruitment agencies in the US, but that's comes part and parcel.
Look, this is where I think that even flexibility in solutions can be helpful as well,
Yeah,
because I think what happens is people get tied into one thing and you don't realize like there's lots of different cash flow options. I mean, obviously
yeah,
there's like staffing and then perm placement, but then there's lots of ways that you can
yeah,
offset, you can get cash flow in, but I do think it's that in the US, like it's all relationship. And it's the same, like I talk to a lot of HR tech companies that are trying to reach VPs of talent of like these huge companies, and they wonder why they're like, oh, a solution's better. And I'm like, the recruiting in like HR field and business, it's all relationships. And even more so, I do think in the US, it is like a who you know thing. And I think
yeah,
the problem is a lot of people now, because of 2021, it was almost like one of the worst things I think could happen because everyone had great years and then it just happened to like, obviously it just like went down really, really quickly after that.
Yeah.
And but it's the same with, I talk to candidates about this all the time. Candidates are expecting, 130K fully remote job with 2 years experience. It's like, yeah, in 2021 that was available. Now it's not. Now it's in the office 5 days a week and we'll give you 50K. And that's a
Yeah.
good offer.
Yeah.
And so I think when you have a big swing like that, it takes time to adjust. But the lesson always is like, this is why I'm passionate about building brand because
Yeah.
I don't know another way outside of just checking in with people every day, which is super annoying.
Yeah.
I don't know another way that you can just stay in front of people consistently. So like, like your friend in New York, it's like you make that initial call, you have that take that initial call. Great. We've established a relationship.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to follow up with you. But then if you have that digital presence as well, where people are thinking about you,
Still.
um,
Yeah.
it's so powerful. But people want everyone wants fast results. And I think social media is probably to blame with that because we see these, we'll see the the 7-figure biller who did it after 6 months. It's like for most people, that's not going to be the path. It's going to
No.
be years of consistency, working really hard, not seeing the results, and then it starts to tip, and then it's in your favor, and you start to build that momentum.
Yeah.
But we don't hear much about those stories because it's not fun. It's not fun to
I
listen
know
to.
$2 million recruiters that no one else would know because they don't shout about it, and they've
Yeah,
put
they're
five,
too
ten
busy
years.
making money.
They're too busy just getting on with it, and 5, 10 years later, just really pushing their success even more. But that's just the recruitment world for you. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and there's a lot of stuff that we see visually that do unfortunately affect other recruiters and the recruitment business owners as well. They're like, oh, this company they must be doing really well. Like they've just published it. They've just had their best ever quarter. And I was like, do you know what their quarter was before that? I was like, they made, they've just basically broken even based over the last 6 months.
They were
So
like, "Hey, can you defer that payment till
yeah,
next quarter? We're trying to boost it up." Like,
absolutely.
and this is where it's like, I'm that's why I try and be vulnerable and authentic with the content. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, I think we need more of that. And I think, look, having a lot of followers online, I talk to brands about this all the time who are looking to
yeah,
partner with influencers. I'm like, you can't just look at the follower count. Like, you got to
yeah,
look at what the content is. Like, are they doing video? Do they have a podcast? Do they have like long form engaged listeners and
yeah,
viewers? Look, you want to get 1,000 likes right now, just do one of my nightly template posts where it says, never forget behind every applicant is a human. There you go.
yeah,
Post that and it's probably going to go viral, but you're not going to get the results that you want. So
yeah,
what I've learned is like nothing worthwhile comes quick and fast. And most of the time, like the really worthwhile things that are worth value, you got to go through like hard work and some sort
yeah,
of disappointment and like almost prove to God or prove to the universe, whatever you want it, whatever you associate with, but prove like I really want this.
yeah,
And anyone who is telling you that there's a quick solution or you need this new piece of tech that's going to solve all your needs or you need this new playbook to get you online success, most of that is like you said, it's just smokes and mirrors, and
yeah,
most of it is just like you got to grind, work hard, get rejected, keep going, keep going. Um, and I think if there's people who are preaching that message, those are the people you probably want to listen to because
yeah,
they're telling you the truth.
absolutely. Joe, that is why you're the realist recruiter, right?
That's right. That's right. The real, not the
Joe,
real estate recruiter, by the way. That's what some people call me, but
real
whatever.
estate recruiter works really well. Should do try that definitely. Joe, look, I've loved having you on. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Search podcast. Can't wait to get this out to the listeners, the followers, people that are tuning in.
Yes.
Definitely one of my most favorite episodes that I've put out there, and we're sending a different message than the other episodes that I've put out there. This is a lot more real. This is a lot more kind of direct, informative. So I can't wait to get it out there. But again, thank you very, very much for your appearance on here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. And guys, remember, I think we do a monthly issue on Hunted as well. So
Yes.
go check out those blogs. And if there's topics that you're like, hey, let's talk about this, feel
Yeah.
free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, DM me. I would love to hear from you guys as well. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, all your contact details will be on the podcast going out. And if anyone wants to reach out, as Joel said, just reach out directly. Yeah, he's all over LinkedIn, but if you need a direction, just come to me and I'll point you in the right direction for him. But
Thanks,
thank you
Elliot.
very much again, mate, and I'll catch up with you very soon.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk soon.